Welcome to Real Estate Developer Discussions with Katie Kim, the room most people never get to sit in. This is where real deals happen, real scars get shared, and real legacies get built, one raw conversation at a time. No fluff, no highlight reels, just the truth behind what it takes to stand in the mud with the deal on the line and still bet everything on yourself. I built my seat with grit, and by the grace of God, now I'm here to ask what no one else will, share what others keep behind closed doors, and bring you with me. So pull up a chair, lean in, you're in the room now, let's get to work. Hey friends, today's episode comes straight from a walk I took this morning. I was listening to this message and it stopped me dead in my tracks. And it was this: stop building a cottage when God has called you to build a palace. And it hit me hard, so hard that I came straight from that walk and I'm recording this podcast for you. So if you're watching it online, you see I'm still in my walking clothes. So because I see this in real estate development, in investing, in business, and in life, heck. We start with big dreams, big faith, and then somewhere along the way, we get burned. We hit a bump. We walk away with some scars. Maybe we bought the wrong property, hired the wrong partner, or started to work with the wrong partner, trusted the wrong person. And instead of learning and rebuilding, we abandon the whole idea. We tell ourselves, I'm never doing that again. We scale our dreams down. We stop taking calls from opportunity. But what if we let that setback, or what if that setback wasn't God telling you to quit? It was Him teaching you how to build stronger. In this episode, we're going to talk about the difference between a renovation, a rebuild, and an abandonment, and how knowing the difference can change everything in your deals and in your life. Because here's the truth. Renovations, they are messy. They are very, very messy. They're tricky. They're uncomfortable, but they force us to get into the bones of something, to strip out what's rotting and to preserve what's worth keeping. And that, my friend, is where the growth happens. So let's get into it, because you're not meant to play small and you're not meant to stay in the cottage if God has called you to a palace. So the cottage versus palace analogy, why this really hits and lands for me is because I feel like the cottage, everybody can vision it, right? It's something small, it's something quaint, something minimal, and it's usually comfortable, right? It's usually a cozy part of the woods or in a cozy little area. And the palace is this visually, it's this big, bold, expansive building, and just maybe it's a lawn, it's a ranch, it has maybe a helicopter pad in your mind, a big pool. You get that visual really intently, right? So like you can picture that cottage, you can picture the palace, and they're two different extremes. And that's what really resonated with me, because a lot of times we think of the cottage as that safe place. The palace is pushing and reaching limits. And maybe you may strive for that, or you're like, oh, I could never do it because it's so big. But what happens when we start to step into our purpose, when we start to step into the reality? And I go back to, you start with step one. And I had this conversation many times this week in my coaching calls, even of, oh, that just seems so daunting, or it seems overwhelming, or I don't know how to do this type of development because I've only done this type of development. How do I bridge that? The answer is get a great team, right? Build your network and start with step one. Right now I'm in the season, my kids are going back to school. So hockey's starting up. So all schedules are like a confetti on the calendar right now. That's the best analogy I have for you. And it's making me go back to slow down to speed up. Start with step one. What do we need to do? Where are the kids going? How are we feeding everybody this week? What does that look like? Start breaking down the small steps. If you want to step into growing that palace, if you're being called to grow that palace, to develop it, what's your step one? I think back to when I was walking about God put on my heart to start the Real Estate Development Academy. And at the time, And it was honestly probably like 5, 6 years ago when he put on my heart. I said, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do online courses. I don't know how to do this. Like, and I just kept, I thought of every excuse and probably about 100 more of why not to do it. Right. Because that's easy. It's easy to not push ourselves out of the comfort zone. It's easy to not step into something we don't know how to do. Right. I think of my Mediterranean diet that my doctor tells me I need to go on. I don't know one Mediterranean meal that I can cook. And most of you know, listening to this, that know me, like, well, Katie, you can't cook. Let's start there. So we think, and our brains are so, so powerful that we can think ourselves out of the first step, right? And the first step is usually the easiest step and the hardest, all in one, right? Goes, if you need a sporting analogy, cooking's not working, kids aren't working, the sporting analogy, the hardest shot to make in a basketball game is a layup, a breakaway layup. And my coach said that to me one time. I'm like, what do you mean? A layup's pretty easy, but you're stealing the ball. Everybody's racing after you down on the court. All eyes are on you. And it's the easiest shot, but the hardest shot because all the pressure's on. So, what is step one that you need to take? For me, when I was launching the academy, as I just mentioned, I didn't know anything about online courses. I didn't know how to get into that arena, right? And finally, last summer, and it's crazy to think it was just last summer, I said, okay, God, let's do this. You want me to do this? You want me to create this online academy, guide people, be that we're there for them in a bigger scale than I am doing right now. You need to put everybody in my life that's going to make this happen for me. Everybody that's going to teach me, guide me, mentor me. Like I was about a 5-year-old kid pouting, right? And if you all know, if you negotiate with God, sometimes it does not really work. It backfires, right? So he put everybody I needed right in my path. So I was like, all right, game on, let's go, let's do this. And I'm proud to say we launched the Real Estate Development Academy in January. And of this year, we've constantly been tweaking and refining and adding value. And then it goes back to that, in essence, you have to sit in the tweak, sit in the refining, right? We're not a one and done society. We're not a one and done community. And development and real estate, that is definitely not a one and done, right? So then it leads me to the thought of the burn and the overcorrection, right? So there's many times in real estate investing, in developing, in life, in your business, where you get burned and you can go to those 3 pivots on the path, right? You can completely quit, you can shift and correct and adjust, right? Or you can go a completely different path. And those are really all your 3 options. Because the other one in my mind, and if you're listening to my podcast, is not an option for you. And that is quitting. And that's not an option. All right. So we're going to move on from there. All right. So then we get to that's the burn, right? And how do you react to that burn? Because that is really a pivotal point in any process that leads you into a dangerous mindset. All right. Because it can shrink your vision. It could lead you into playing small. It could define, as Dan Martell says, that pain point, right? Like, okay, now I'm going to grow to this point. Oh, we're at that pain point again. We got to shift, right? Or we got to overcorrect. So then what people do is they overcorrect. I'm never doing that again. This is bad. No, 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 no. I mean, like they're the naysayers that like know everything because they did it once and it didn't work out. And they probably did it once without doing all their research, jumped into the deep end of the pool and then realized it was freezing and got right out, right? So let's step into it logically. All right. So we have renovation versus rebuild versus abandonment. Okay. In the development side, I'm bringing back the analogies to development now. Okay. So renovation, what do you do in a renovation? You usually keep the foundation, maybe some of the walls, but you strip out what doesn't serve you and you improve the systems, right? You may, I think of when we did Keller
which means
Station,
more station
right?
in Peoria.
We were stripping out everything inside that building, but the walls, the foundation. That's pretty much it. We put new plumbing, new HVAC, new electrical, new layout, new flow, new operations, all those things. So we renovated. And with each suite, each building we did, we tweaked it a little bit, right? We're like, oh, okay, well, the market's actually wanting this office space instead of this office space. They want this experience. renovation, you're constantly tweaking that process. Now let's look at rebuild. Rebuild, you're starting fresh with new plans, right? I think rebuilds or new builds are one of the easiest things in developments to do, because the one thing is, as soon as you get out of the ground, now there's a lot of things you can find in the ground. So I know that those new builders are in there like, well, Katie, yes, you can find a lot of stuff in the ground. But once you get above ground, clean slate, clear plan, let's go, we're building it up. Yes, you can have delays, bumps, bruises, right? Your contractors can quit. You could have COVID hit and you can't get a transformer for 16 or 64 weeks or something like that. Yes, things can happen, but you're constantly tweaking and refining along the process, even though you're starting with new. And you can take those lessons and continue to tweak and grow from them, right? When you look at an abandoned property, somebody's walked away and they lost all the potential entirely. They walked away, give over the deed, give over the lands, whatever it is. They've abandoned this and they've just walked away. And I want to say that that is usually the easiest step to do. It's easy to quit and give up. It is hard to dig in. It's hard to do those renovation projects. It's hard to do a rebuild. It's hard because you're constantly being challenged. You're constantly growing. Your systems, your teams, your network, they're constantly being developed, right? So what's the lesson, or why the mess in the lesson? Let's just put it that way. Like, why are lessons messy, right? Renovations, when you strip something back down to the bones and to the structure, to the studs, if you will, it forces clarity. It forces you to look at that space and say, what am I putting in here? What am I designing? How is this going to impact? How is this going to flow? And you see hidden flaws. You expose them. You learn the process. You gain that wisdom. You step into it. This is true for a building, and it's true for your mindset and your calling. And that's what really hit me is I love a good urban infill project, like love a good urban infill project. I love walking into a building where people see crap and like, where do we get started? And there's mess all over the place. I think of Trefsker's Bakery. When I walked through it the first time with Jeff and Martha, we were kids in a candy shop. And if you look at some of the photos, and hopefully I can have my team put some of them up during this podcast. So if you want to look at them, we can show what it looked like before and as we walk through. Most people would walk into that building and be like, oh my gosh, where do we start? Right? Where do we start? And I remember even my husband, Charles, he walked in, he's like, okay, once we tear this building down, like, where are we facing the new building? And all of us were like, what do you mean? This is beautiful. And the look on his face was like, okay, y'all are on drugs. Like, this is not beautiful. This has like 5 different floors. There's like the ceilings being held up by the grace of God. There's internal water features and. But that vision and that purpose for what we wanted that space for, we saw it, right? Because that was our purpose. That was our mission. That was our mindset. Like, we can make this amazing. And I'm happy to say today, the building is beautiful and it is such an asset in the community and a great place for Jeff and Martha to grow their business, as well as some other businesses as are in the building too. So, and they're expanding the campus. And so learning that renovations focus that clarity and to sit in the process, to get comfortable with the process. We've made things way too easy these days to do. So I want to bring this back to, in those moments, is investing in yourself through the process, whether it's education, mentorship, network, building those tools to be ready for that next opportunity, and how faith and purpose can fuel that resilience. And when you're hitting those like rock bottoms or those bumps, or you open up a wall and you find something that you had no idea was in it and you have to deal with it, build up your education, mentorship, and network to help you through those processes, or help you think through, change the game, get done. Whether you're in a situation where your team now is facing some financial troubles with your development, right? Those happen. Don't hide that. Lean in to trusting your team, lean in to trusting your network, and see whose opportunity, whose idea, how do you change the game? How do you restructure things to be able to take that next step, to be able to continue to grow in your purpose? All right, listen, I don't know where you're at right now. Maybe you're in the middle of your own renovation season, in your business, in your finance, in your faith. Maybe you've been tempted to abandon the whole thing, the whole project, the whole idea, everything, right? It's not for me because it didn't go the way you planned. All right. But hear me on this, okay? God doesn't want to give you palace-sized purpose for you to settle for a cottage. All right. Those bumps, those bruises, those moments where you thought you couldn't go on, they're not the end of your story. They're the scaffolding that's going to hold you up for what comes next. So invest in yourself, learn the lessons, keep building, because the palace he's calling you to create isn't just for you. It's for every life you're going to impact when you step fully into your purpose. So pick up your plans, dust off your tools, and get back to work. You've got a palace to build, and I cannot wait to see it. Let's go. The information in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not legal advice. It's not financial advice. It's not investment advice. Real estate development, like any investment, carries risk. Before you make decisions, you should always consult a licensed professional, your attorney, your CPA, or your financial advisor, to name a few, to make sure you're making the right choice for your situation. I'm here to share insights and strategy, but you're responsible for your own decisions, and each situation is unique. So make sure you contact your professional team to give you your specific guidance for your specific case, as each real estate development's different and unique and has its own challenges and opportunities. Hey friend, before you go, I want to say this. If real estate development has been on your heart or on your mind, we've built lanes to help you walk it out wherever you're starting from. Just exploring? Start out with our free live masterclass. Ready to do the reps and build the strategy? Join the Developer 101 Bootcamp. Already active and need to level up? Step into the Real Estate Development Academy. You don't have to figure this out alone. We can teach you, we guide you, and we walk with you. So head over to katiekim.com and book a call with our team today, and let's figure out the best first or next step for you. You're not behind, you're not too late, and you're definitely not too early. You're right on time. Let's go.